Partner 4-H for another updated video on how to judge heifers. I know you guys enjoyed the last video. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people watched it. So I wanted to do an updated video with better microphone so you can hear exactly what I'm saying. But number one, when you get on top of any species, when you're trying to decipher how to judge any species, it really comes down to ranking the traits. So it's the same 3-4 traits for every single animal. Muscle and condition, then you're moving down into structure, and then balance and proportionality, or those extra pieces. So those are your three main traits for every single species of animal, but it just depends on what you're judging and how you rank those traits in terms of importance. But we'll kind of break that down right here, right now. So when you've got your class here, you want to understand the ranking of these traits. So the number one trait for heifers is what? Structure, right? If I can actually type. So structure is your number one trait for heifers, and this is not a surprise because structure is something you can't feed on, and that's what you want in a breeding animal. You want those pieces you can't feed on to be apparent, because if you have those pieces that cannot be fed on and you have them perfect, then all the other things that can be fed on can be fixed. So a lot of those structural pieces, all the structural pieces cannot be fed on, so you really want to make sure that whatever breeding heifer you're judging has those structural pieces first and foremost. Number two, we're going to look at condition, and the condition and balance. Really, I would kind of put that all together, but I would put condition and I don't even know how to say it, how maternal they are. So you want to put condition somewhere towards the top here, because condition is really important. Their cage and how their condition looks. This is really important because you really want to understand, can this heifer carry a calf efficiently? Does it have wide enough ribs to carry this calf? Does it have deep enough ribs to carry this calf? Does it have enough volume and its center 2/3 to carry a calf? And that's really what this condition standpoint is. And condition is really just evaluating fat. And fat can be evaluated through the rib cage as well. And condition, especially in that middle 2/3, is important because you really want to have that female maternal look, and condition in the middle 2/3 helps that a lot. Now, when you're looking at your final couple of traits, condition is really roped in together with your look from the side, or I like to call it balance and proportionality. I can't really spell. But balance and proportionality and condition go together, because condition helps with that balance and proportionality, and it plays into that, because balance is really how well all of these pieces blend together. And the same with proportionality. Proportionality is basically saying, does this animal does the size of all of its features match? Does it look like one complete animal, or just cookie cutter pieces put together? And really, you're looking for that clean cut look where all of the pieces of that animal are put together really well, and that's what condition, balance, and proportionality do. And I like to put them all together because it's one big thing. And you can even just say balance and proportionality and rope condition into it, which I like to do a lot. Now, your final breaking point will be muscle and market value, because if that heifer really just stops being efficient, or you want to have some meat value there, to you're going to butcher it eventually once it gets too old to produce anymore. So you want it to have some muscle and market value in case you want to go that route. And really, this is just your third breaking point. So if you really, all the animals in whatever class you're judging have great structure, have good balance and proportionality, every single one of them have identical traits in those two categories, then you've got to break it on muscle and market value, and that's your number 3 trait. And that you only judge heifers on muscle and market value if, in that particular pair or in that class you're judging, every animal in that pair or class has good structure or good balance and proportionality. Like, I could have a pair of 2 heifers that are really in the top pair that are really good structured and have really good balance and proportionality. So you've got two heifers that are great in those two areas, but you've got one that's lighter muscled and one that is heavier muscled, then you break the class and put the heavier muscled one on top and talk and say, both these animals in my top pair had great structure, had great proportionality, but where it came down to it for me was muscle where the one heifer shines or whatever. You just want to talk that muscle standpoint. If it really broke down, that top hair in particular broke down to muscle and market value. But sorry, I just threw a lot of information at y'all. I was just trying to make a point for that muscle and market value standpoint. So let's head into looking at the actual animal here that we have in the picture, and breaking this one down based on our three traits. Now, a lot of people like to say structure is just from that red line down, and it really isn't. That's not what structure is. Structure consists, in my opinion, of hip and the legs. Really, that's what structure is to me, because length of hip and levelness of hip cannot necessarily be fed on. Bone and structure of the legs cannot be fed on, but every piece really from this line on forward, let me just draw the two lines. From these two lines on forward can be fed on. And really a lot of those pieces in balance and proportionality can't be fed on as well. So structure and balance and proportionality are very close, but you evaluate them different ways. And they're similar in the way where balance and proportionality, some of those pieces cannot be fed on in terms of those front end looks, and basically that front end that we're talking about can't be fed on. But really we're looking at structure as the hip. If I can get a different color here, you guys can see the hip, and then move down into their legs. So let's start from the ground up like I like to judge, and we'll go from there. Now, number one, from the ground up, you're looking at foot size, plays a factor into this. Foot size and bone size, those are really accessory pieces, but they really play a part in the structure because you're seeing how much bone that animal has and if that can carry on in the next generation. So if you're talking about bone density, and in my opinion, I call it bone size or the bone width, really you're seeing from one side to the other on the side view in particular, that is really your bone size, and you want that to match with the foot size. So if you've got an animal with great big bone going all the way down and then it just tapers down into a little small foot, that really wouldn't be good structured because that animal wouldn't have enough bone. It wouldn't be big boned. And big bone really confused me for a while. I thought that just meant the size of bone. But big bone to a lot of people means they carry that same width of bone going all the way down their leg, and this heifer does a great job of that. Now, foot size and bone size, you don't want them too big and too big boned and too big footed. That's what you're looking for in the showy market animal type of thing. But right now, when you're looking at breeding females, you don't want that to shine. You want that to be a great accessory piece, but not too big that it just overpowers everything else. So this one's got great foot size, great bone size, and is definitely big bone. And when you have a heifer like this and you want to talk about the size of the bone as well as the proportionality of bone going all the way down to the foot, then you can just say big bone. If they're good in both ways, you can just say big bone, and the evaluator of your reasons will see it however he saw it. So if he saw it big boned as the fact that she carried that bone all the way down, then great, he saw it that way. If you saw it in the way where you thought that she had great width of bone, then you can talk it that way. You can just say big boned if they've got great width and proportionality of bone going all the way down. Now, for their hip, you want a nice long hip in order for them to carry a nice calf and a nice exit for the calf when you're getting them out. So really, length of hip plays a big portion into this as well. It's a great accessory piece as well. So this heifer's got a great long hip, a nice piece there that we're definitely looking at, and you can see where the hip ends. There's usually when you're just judging from a stockyard or judging not from a farm, you can see in real life, instead of at a show, you can definitely see that break in the hip, and judge whether that's long or short hip. That's really what all you're looking for in the hip. You can also evaluate the levelness of hip, so how you don't want this, you don't want this. You want somewhere in the middle of those two, where they've got a nice level and long hip. That's really what you're looking for in these market heifers. Not market heifers, but breeding heifers. I keep saying market heifers. Now, to go into balance and proportionality, I like to break it down and start with that middle 2/3, and start on the condition side of things and their rib and their maternal value from that middle 2/3. And this is something I like to talk about a lot. And from a rear view, you can definitely see it. From a side view, you can definitely see this as well. It's their rib cage. Again, I've talked about it all day. And really, for their middle 2/3 right here, you want to see that pop. So when you're looking from behind, you want to see this nice curvature to their rib, and so much that they look comfortable, or not so much that they look uncomfortable, but not so little that they look shrunk in. So you want the perfect amount so they look comfortable, but still have the right amount of width of rib. And that's, you can also call that spring of rib if you want to get technical here. But that's really awesome to have, because you want them to be able to carry a calf, carry a large calf, maybe even twins, if that comes into play. But you want them to be able to carry a calf and still move soundly and efficiently. And that's where this condition and rib cage plays into effect. And the same thing goes for the depth of rib, and you're really looking from their top line on down to where their stomach ends. If they've got a great, if the distance from their top line to their chest or to their stomach is greater than the distance from their stomach to the ground, then they're good. Then they're deep enough ribbed. So really looking at the depth and width of rib is important to the condition and balance and proportionality side of things. Now, when you want to look at over here the other pieces of balance and proportionality, you can talk front to back, as well as front end. So those are two areas that we want to talk about. So I'll first talk front to back. So front to back is really what you're talking about in terms of proportionality, how well that animal blends all of its pieces together. And this heifer does that excellently. Really looks like one complete animal and not just spare parts thrown together. So really a great heifer here that does a great job with the proportionality. And I like to look at their shoulder down to their hip. So really this area right here that's drawn by the red line is the big area where you can start to move away from proportionality, where they can get coarse shouldered, where they have too much muscle in their shoulder and it looks uneven. And same thing for their hip. They can have too wide of a hip that doesn't match up with the width of their entire body. So you want everything to almost blend perfectly together from a side view, and that's what you're talking about with balance and proportionality. And moving into the front end as well as our last piece of balance and proportionality, you want them to have a clean front end. Again, still some product on there. This heifer does an excellent job of that as well. Clean, nice front end with some product on there as well. And again, talking about that front end, in terms of height, you want a long enough front end that it looks nice, but not too long that it looks like, again, a spare part thrown on the heifer. So you want a nice front end on her that makes her look pretty and look like one complete animal that is a breeding female. Now, muscle and market value. Again, muscle is their loin, their rear, up here in front. So those are the three areas you're looking for in muscle. Those are the three areas you can use to evaluate muscle. I really like on hogs to look up top on their loin, because a lot of show pigs really have that pop and expression in their loin. But really on heifers, or really especially on steers, you're not seeing a lot of that. You're really seeing a lot of rear end and excuse me, brisket on these cows especially. Now, from behind muscle ripples and pops. So you're going to see a lot of those ripples to indicate muscle, and on their loin you're going to see something like this, like an M shape. But muscle is really just that last break that you don't want to use unless you really have to. So we'll not talk too much about that, but if you want to see more about that, we'll make a steer video, and you can come back and use what you learned there here. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video judging heifers with a new updated microphone that sounds really well. I hope you guys are having a great day. Hopefully this made your day better and makes your judging career so much easier. See you guys later.